아 그래요?
응.
아 다행이다. 그럼 취소하면
응.
이게 600이면 300이 나갔어.
응.
300 나간 건 나간
여기 하고
거고.
있는 얘기가 다 들려요.
이렇게 있을까?
May I have your attention, please? 2021 KERIS Symposium Global Networking Week will begin at 2 p.m. I would like to welcome all of you being here with Metaverse and YouTube in real time. The 2021 KERIS Symposium Global Networking Week will be held for 3 days from November 24 to 26, and it starts at 2 p.m. every day in Korea Standard Time. We will start by inviting 4 speakers from 3 renowned organizations. Afterward, I would like to invite everyone to participate in an OX quiz in this Metaverse platform. Please stay with us till the end of session, where we also prepare the prizes for winner. Also, there are 3 galleries on your right, which will be operated throughout 3 days. Each gallery is prepared by partners of KERIS. After the gallery tour, we'll having an event session. For those who wish to join us in this platform, please check KERIS Instagram for access guidelines. Please be informed that in a metaverse space, host might control your sitting function and microphone. In here, metaverse space, you don't need to wear a mask and there's no need for a temperature check. Please feel free to move around and converse with each other. After this announcement, 3D voice system will be applied. The talking voice will be louder or quieter as distance. Then, ladies and gentlemen, may I listen to your voices? You. From now on, please feel free to interact with others until 2 p.m. 2021 KERIS Symposium Global Networking Week will start shortly. All participants, please take a seat in the metaverse space, please. Thank you. Welcome to the 2021 KERIS Global Networking Week. Good afternoon. I'm Yu Young, your host for today. With the prolonged COVID-19, we are facing many changes in our daily lives. With non-contact life becoming more common in these 2 years, the role of KERIS in Korea's education became ever more important. Acceleration of digital transformation brought a rapid change in educational environment, and I'm honored to meet a leading expert in the new, innovative environment. I believe this event will serve as a foundation for new possibility in education of Korea and our partners. Today, 2021 KERIS Symposium Global Networking Week will start with 3 presentations under the theme of Collective Futures Agenda for Change, and we'll have Metaverse OS quiz afterwards. For those who are in Metaverse space, I will guide you how to use Opus function. If you're on your personal computers, please press ESC button and click the hand icon on the right tab. And on the mobile phones, please check the blue button on the microphone icon and click the hand icon. First, Mr. Noah Yarrow, Senior Education Specialist of World Bank Jakarta office, will present about EdTech in COVID Korea, Learning with Inequality. Let's welcome Mr. Noah Yarrow with big round of applause.
Specialist with the World Bank based here in Washington, D.C. And I have been working as part of a team with Haeon Kim on a research paper titled EdTech in COVID Korea, Learning with Inequality. Our main conclusion is that Korea's education system largely withstood the challenges of COVID. The Korean education system is resilient and was robust on average to the challenges presented by the epidemic. And this is largely a result of 3 factors, first of which is the human capital or human capacity, specifically the teachers, high levels of investment in education technology and connectivity, And thirdly, a stable policy environment where successive governments and ministries of education invested and maintained interlocking multi-year plans for education technology. So first question is, what did COVID look like in Korea in terms of school closures? In March 2020, there was a delayed reopening. In April 2020, much of April, instruction was fully online. And then around May 2020, schools nationally instituted hybrid learning. So some students were in class, others were online, and then they switched. And for our investigation, we looked at data from several different student assessments, which are mentioned here and which I'll discuss shortly. What did our research show? We found that on average, student learning levels didn't change very much, but for students at the top and bottom ends of the performance distribution, there were increases. So as you can see in figure 1, looking at the transition pre-COVID from 8th graders and 9th graders, you have a decrease in the number of students scoring below 60 and a modest increase in the students scoring above 90 when you compare 8th grade scores with 9th grade scores in 2018 and 2019. If you then compare 8th grade and 9th grade scores from 2019 to 2020, you find that the number of students achieving at the high end of the distribution, 90% and above, increased significantly, more than twice as in the previous cohort. And the number achieving below 60, so at the lowest level, also increased. So this shows that over time, as a result of the changes in instructional practices during COVID, namely online learning and hybrid learning, these were associated with increases at the tail ends of the distribution. So more higher performers and more lower performers. So this shows that the COVID-related closures and instructional practices were associated with increasing inequality. So to confirm these findings, we looked at student achievement in one region, looking at 8th grade across Korean, math, and English, and comparing the scores from 2019 to scores in 2020 under the hybrid learning and the delayed start of school. And the differences are not large, but what you see is that in all 3 subjects, the number of students achieving in the middle of the distribution decreased, while those achieving at the upper and lower ends of the distribution increased. So this provides more evidence that while average learning stayed about the same, student learning in Korea became more unequal during the pandemic. And similar traits, similar processes occurred in other countries. Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, the United States, all experienced very concerning levels of student learning loss during COVID. And much of the initial information implies that those learning losses may have been greater than those experienced by Korea, but we are still gathering all the data and trying to fully understand exactly what happened where. But certainly in the Korean case, it appears that inequality increased, particularly in the higher grades. So a final piece of information was also from a regional area, looking at 10th grade, all same subjects and similar findings. The upper and the lower performers increased, and the proportion of students performing in the middle of the distribution decreased. It looks like part of the role was likely played by EdTech itself, by giving more autonomy to students, by depending on parents or other caregivers in the home to help students stay focused. Those students with a lot of drive, a lot of academic ambition, who are able to sit still and be undisturbed and focus on their computers or devices for extended periods of time in order to learn the material did well and even better perhaps than they would have had they been in a classroom setting, while those students who had responsibilities for care of other siblings, household duties, or other jobs in and around the home, or who were unable to focus and maintain that drive over months of school closure and then online learning, did less well as a result. So with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Haeyeon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah. Based on our findings on learning loss, I will then present key factors that enabled Korea to protect average levels of learning and its policy implications. First of all, the human infrastructure, especially the teachers' digital skills, should be the primary focus of EdTech strategies. We need to link the teachers' digital skills training as part of their teacher accreditation in their continuous professional development. Secondly, the need for equipment and networking infrastructure tends to increase over time. So the long-term financing strategies that include inputs from multiple stakeholders rather than one-off procurement decided by a small number of stakeholders are helpful. Thirdly, EdTech can be leveraged to ensure inclusive remote learning, as we have seen from Korea's special education portals and customized contents and materials for distance learning. And lastly, the government can map the digital content to specific curricular objectives and support the local government and schools' curriculum adaptation based on the local e-readiness and capacity of ICT infrastructure. So from this research, we have seen both sides of distance learning, one of them being protecting the average levels of learning while enhancing the learning inequality. It is crucial that we pay special attention to the students who are vulnerable and are at the bottom end of the learning curve. So we think Korea and other countries could lead the ways in designing EdTech strategies that could preferentially support low-income and vulnerable students. Our potential areas of collaboration would be the joint research and knowledge exchange on learning outcome from the EdTech and new methods of learning, and consulting, and also the consulting and training opportunities for the developing countries on the EdTech policy framework and its implication. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your valuable words. Next, Ms. Chi Margaret Sakt Israel and Mr. Ton Dong from UNESCO Bangkok office will deliver a presentation on achieving SDG 4 toward the future of education in the Asia Pacific. UNESCO Bangkok office has long been KERIS' valuable partner. Let's welcome Ms. Saks Israel and Mr. Ton Dong with a big round of applause.
Korea Education and Research Information Service, distinguished fellow speakers, experts, and guests, greetings from UNESCO Bangkok. It is a pleasure to be invited to the 2021 KERIS Global Symposium and Exhibition and to speak on the important topic of achieving SDG 4 towards the future of education in the Asian Pacific region. As the Asia and Pacific Regional Bureau of Education, UNESCO Bangkok aims at supporting countries in the implementation of SDG 4 and thus in improving access to as well as enhancing quality, inclusion, and equality in education. We do this by supporting governments in building systems that have equity and learning at their core. In line with this, we would like to take the opportunity today to present on the progress made on SDG 4 in the Asia Pacific region, as well as the way forward. As you know, the unprecedented disruption caused by COVID-19 had a major impact on progress of SDG 4, but at the same time showed the potential of ICTs to providing quality education for all. This being said, this potential has not yet been harnessed, as many learners could not be reached during school closures, in particular the most vulnerable population, due to the digital divide. Within the region, UNESCO Bangkok is responsible for the coordination and monitoring of the achievement of SDG 4. In line with this, UNESCO conducted a 5-year progress review of SDG 4 in the region, and it is now my pleasure to present to you the key findings of this progress review. I would now like to hand over to my colleague Tuan Dang to present you the latest findings of this report. Tuan, over to you.
Thank you, Margaret. I will now go on through some of the specific targets of SDG 4. SDG 4 calls for access to quality basic education for all children and young people, regardless of their socioeconomic circumstances, equipping them with basic literacy and numeracy skills and relevant learning outcomes. Target 4.1 advocates that by 2030, to ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. Although there has been an increased participation in primary education, the completion of secondary level education remains low, and gender disparity in completion rates tends to be more prominent among the poorest households in some countries. Access to quality vocational education, tertiary education, and adult learning is increasingly important to promoting lifelong learning. In recent years, significant economic progress in the region has increased the demand for a skilled workforce to build the foundation for sustainable economic development. In most regions in the Asia Pacific, the proportion of youth enrolled in vocational education is higher than the global average of 5%, except for South Asia, where
together and the common good. Forging a new social contract for education means, firstly, examining core values, the foundational principles embedded in our education system. Secondly, examining the design of our education systems, how we set up our schools, universities, and all the places and all the times where education takes place and where educational opportunities are present. And finally, examining actions and actors, the how and the who of reimagining education. So now we need to ask, how can education be reimagined and how will students learn in the future? Let me now present to you UNESCO's work on reimagining education and give you some concrete examples. So with the aim to drive change, to unlock opportunities, to empower learners, we work in 4 main areas. The first one is on policies. So as regards policies, all efforts are made to ensure that effective learning takes place. Teachers are at the heart of education, and therefore it is key for them to be well-trained, professionally qualified, adequately recruited, motivated, and supported within efficient and effective governance systems. And finally, at the learner's level, we support learners to acquire the knowledge and skills needed for the future work through skills development for life and work, education for sustainable development, global citizenship education, and others. Focus is to provide access to education to the most vulnerable groups and to ensure that they continue learning and achieve adequate learning outcomes. Let me now provide you with a few concrete examples of UNESCO Bangkok's work in these particular areas. UNESCO Bangkok supports countries in the region to develop robust and coherent education policies and strategies, as I mentioned before. So very concretely, we have provided technical support to countries such as Bangladesh, Bhutan, Kiribati, Kyrgyzstan, and Lao PDR, just to mention a few, on their education sector planning in alignment with making progress towards SDG 4. We support countries' national capacity development for sector-wide ESPs and SDG 4 in areas including early childhood education, learning assessment, ICTs in education, and SDG 4. Countries we work with are Afghanistan, Mongolia, Philippines, and Turkmenistan. We also work to strengthen countries' education systems' resilience to better cope with future crises. For this part of work, we have conducted rapid assessment on impact of COVID-19, and I have undertaken in-depth studies on 14 countries. And we also undertake online training, meetings, and consultations and webinars to prepare countries and contextualize tools and frameworks for contingency planning on COVID-19. In the area of teachers' development and to ensure that teachers are empowered, adequately recruited, well-trained, and professionally qualified, motivated, and supported, as well as resilient in times of crises, countries need to have a comprehensive, crisis-sensitive teacher policy. So therefore, UNESCO supported the Ministry of Education, Sports, and Lao PDR to develop an evidence-based national education policy with a comprehensive and holistic approach that encompasses a broad range of interlocking dimensions affecting how individuals choose to become and remain teachers, train for the work, and perform effectively. The ongoing participatory development process also ensures that in a crisis context, there is suitable employment and working conditions for teachers, appropriate teacher training and preparation, information sharing and consultation mechanisms, and teacher support for continued teacher and learner. Finally, as I mentioned also, UNESCO puts learners at the heart of its work. So as an example, 4 years ago, UNESCO embarked on a project entitled Digital Kids Asia Pacific, which sought to understand what students are thinking, what students are doing and feeling in their use of online technology. This research sought not only to understand the technical skills needed for using technology, but also emotional and behavioral skills that would enable youth to be safe, ethical, and effective in the digital era. The end result was a holistic digital citizenship competency framework covering 5 domains, which are digital literacy, digital safety and resilience, digital participation and agency, digital emotional intelligence, and finally, digital creativity and innovation. I now would like to also take this opportunity to share some thoughts on potential areas for future collaboration between UNESCO and KERIS and other partners. So we believe that it would be very important to remove barriers that hinder equity, inclusion, and quality in education. And therefore, we hope to work with KERIS and other partners at the policy level to promote effective teacher policy, to provide quality teacher training for digital learning, to reach the most vulnerable learners, and to close the digital divide. So thank you very much. With that, I would like to close our presentation. And thanks to KERIS again for hosting this event. UNESCO is committed to expand its global cooperation and to continue to share knowledge and experiences of ICTs in education with the international communities and to provide capacity development. Thank you, and I wish you a continued successful event.
Thank you for your wonderful words. Next, Mr. Jeffrey Shi from Asian Development Bank will deliver a presentation on education technology and efforts to improve the quality of basic education. Please kindly welcome Mr. Shi with a big round of applause.
Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you very much for having me in this KERIS symposium. Asian Development Bank, as a partner of KERIS, is supporting our developing member countries through various pipeline projects and technical assistance projects across 3 subsectors: K-12 school education, higher education, and technical vocational training and education. So I will share ADB's support and a strategy for digital transformation in the education sector through what we call the ecosystem approach for edtech adoptions. So let me first briefly share the agenda for my presentation today. I will first explain a bit about the objectives and the challenges in the education system, what we call the trilemma, across our developing member countries, and the opportunities to converge technology throughout the education system to have a sustainable impact. I will also share some lessons learned that we have seen when working with over about 10 different countries now through COVID, and also the framework we set up called the Digital Education Readiness Framework, the DERF. Finally, I will wrap up with a few key recommendations and some thoughts for considerations as the priorities for countries to take on the digital transformation journey with education technology. So on this slide, you can see that the SDG 4, which we all working towards, this is as ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Now, if you look at this key, there are actually 3 key words we can capture this goal. That is equitable, effective, and enduring. Equitable is kind of easy. Effective meaning quality education. In this we call personalized education. Enduring really means it's sustainable with the cost, with the scale. So, so what we see the reality is, it's extremely difficult to achieve all the 3 E's at the same time. That's becoming what we call the impossible dilemma. So the question is, how can we achieve equitable, high quality education with sustainable and affordable costs at the same time? So to describe the first challenge, in many ADB DMs, developing member countries, we've seen significant improvements to access and near universal primary school enrollment rates. However, we've seen with very low quality, the learning crisis disproportionately affects the poorest countries when 7 out of 10 children coming out of school will not learn basic primary level skills in literacy and numeracy. The promise of EdTech, of course, has the potential to address the quality issues for each student. And now we come into challenge number 2. So how do we scale the pilot, the successful EdTech interventions we're seeing in selected schools to nationally in the country and with sustainable cost? EdTech initiatives such as adaptive learning, teach at the right level for each student, has proven to be effective in improving student learning outcomes. For example, MindSpark's adaptive, online tutoring system in India improved test scores on math and language by 0.37 and 0.23 standard deviations, respectively, after a 4-month period. Around the state, ESU has also used adaptive learning with 65,000 students in 12 courses, introducing what we call the Alex platform in a college algebra course, and an increased completion rate by over 20%, and over 28.5% for students further behind. Now, this is what ADB is hoping to work with our DMCs to have the best adoption and operating model to scale and with the sustainable cost. So this is to avoid high license costs based on each user and the dependency on expensive computer devices. The third challenge I'm trying to describe is, now, even if we figure out the best model that proved to be effective and affordable, is the country ready in its current capacity to roll out large-scale technology inclusive programs nationally to benefit all the regions and all students? What are the key enabling factors, policies, and monitoring and evaluation capacity that needs to be built and strengthened to fully capitalize the technology advancements with the support of ADB to our DMCs? So with the the challenges, like I said, we've seen the technology convergence. Technology really comes from developments, and the convergence comes from developments across multiple disciplines, such as innovations in pedagogy, psychology, and neuroscience. Combined with technologies powered by artificial intelligence and big data analytics, education becomes a powerful enabler to transform learning. and make it more equitable. So that's what we say EdTech is for the purpose of digital learning. So learning is the most important outcome we need to achieve. And we've seen neurological breakthroughs, for example, show how the culture environment alters children's brain development, which impacts learning and school readiness. Discoveries in behavioral science show how early learning sets the foundation for success in school and in life. This improves the lives of children and their learning experiences. We also need tailored human support. We know it's important for integrating technology with education. AI and adaptive learning software can help students learn at their own pace, learn from their mistakes, and better understand knowledge. The teachers, at the same time, can use data generated by the different software systems to cater to each student. Really focus on active learning and higher order skills. Now, this is also combining cognitive and non-cognitive skills such as social-emotional, psychological, and physiological considerations that motivate students to learn and to excel in the new world of fourth industrial revolution. So let's first look at a real-life example of technology intervention with a very standardized solution, an interactive whiteboard. So this is one example that we see in our country study. The interactive whiteboard has proven to be effective in many developed countries in the past years, because it empowers the teachers to structure more interactive classrooms. It increases teacher-student engagement and making the learning process more fun. Now, when this is making its way to the developing countries, however, we see many challenges. Now, this project rolled out the whiteboard to 30% of the schools in the country. However, 1 year later, many of the whiteboards installed were either rarely used or broken. Now, the results show very limited impact to student learning outcomes. If we look at the different factors to see why it didn't achieve the desired outcome, first we look at the infrastructure pillar. So some of the classrooms where the whiteboards are installed has no network connection or not even a stable power supply to maximize the usage of the device's full potential. Now, second, if you look at the enabling government policies on the project, there's no maintenance and support funding for the devices after rollout. There's also no tracking of the devices usage by the teachers. Policy instead stipulates that if the whiteboards are broken, the teachers need to bear the cost of repair. You can see from the teacher's view, there's really no incentive for using the device, but there are penalties for device repairs. So if we then look at the teachers and the schools pillar, the teacher did not get the necessary training to fully utilize the device, the full capabilities. Now, the same situation is true with the students. They're not getting the needed training on how to use the smart board to do presentations of their projects, hence some boards are broken by misuse from the students. The final pillar we see here is the providers pillar, where because there's no funding to engage a support partner to timely address any technical issues or integration issues in the project. Hence, the project really struggled when they roll out, a year after we see this effect. So, from this, what we're seeing is a systematic approach to EdTech adoption is important. Technology cannot be standalone. It needs to be fully converged in the education systems to make sustainable impact. Now, there are many key factors that need to be considered at the national level or at each individual project level like the example I gave in the prior slide, ADB is using the DERF, what we call the Digital Education Readiness Framework, to define in a holistic manner the gaps in the recommendations in a country before implementing the best fit interventions. The DERF measures a country's digital readiness situation in 5 pillars across 20 subdomains and a total of 55 indicators. First, as we quickly go through the infrastructure pillar, look at improvements in connections, devices, and the gradual advancement to shift from the low-tech to medium-tech to high-tech modality that can fully utilize the benefits of EdTech at each stage, and also to reduce the digital divide. Second, the government pillar, look at the policies, governance, and the planning activities that include curriculum, content delivery strategy, the training strategy, and the capacity to monitor and measure progress. Third, the school and the teachers pillar, look at school management capabilities and the teacher quality matters such as digital skills and the empowerment of teachers as the key enabler in the education system. Fourth is the students and the caregiver pillar, which is typically neglected prior to COVID, while the importance of household or community-based learning outside of school was fully demonstrated as a key component of the student learning, especially during COVID, the pandemic time frame. With flipped learning and other blended learning modalities, we see this is really a strong complement to school learning. Now, the fifth pillar covers the provider pillar. This includes education system providers, content providers, and telecom providers in the country through what we call the public-private partnerships activities to enhance and enrich the country provider landscape. This is extremely important for local language and local system support in each country. So we now have data for for 10 countries in this framework, including Cambodia, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Kyrgyz Republic, Uzbekistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Mongolia, and Fiji. So the digital education readiness framework defines the readiness level in 4 stages: nascent, emerging, developed, and mature. They are corresponding to what we call the traditional in-person learning, the blended learning, digital learning, and adaptive learning. So what we see during COVID is a widening digital gap, and the varying modalities exist at the same time across age groups, countries, and regions within countries. So the traditional in-person learning, which has existed for centuries, is forced into remote and distance learning, as we see during COVID. And there's also online learning for households that has internet connectivity. This blended with in-person learning is becoming the new normal amid and post-COVID. In the meantime, many countries have tried to hybrid various modalities such as flipped learning, flipped classrooms, and project-based learning, the PBL, with the blended learning to maximize the benefits of remote or online learning and the in-person learning. Now, digital learning takes the blended learning to the next level by digitizing the whole pre-class, in-class, and post-class, the teaching and learning processes, both online and offline. This includes online learning technology enabled interactive classrooms, technology-empowered teacher training and teacher professional developments, and also to have full visibility of students' learning progress data. Now, with the accumulation of digital learning with students' learning data, now from the various platforms, we start to see enhanced algorithms and intelligence to automatically adapt to personalized learning needs based on each student's unique competency and knowledge level. So that's ultimately the adaptive and personalized learning. So finally, to summarize the key recommendations when countries are starting off the digital transformation journey. First of all, as we see, it's extremely important to take the cohesive and ecosystem approach for digital transformation. Now, ADB Digital Education Readiness Framework is a tool that can be used to support the assessment, diagnostic, planning of this process across the 5 pillars in the education system, beyond wrapping up the digital infrastructure. At the same time, we need to invest in ramping up digital readiness of teachers, adopting learning management systems and adaptive learning systems, the various systems that support students and teachers, building interactive, engaging, and gamified learning contents, the digital contents, and adoption of the digital job matching platforms for higher education and TVET to tackle the supply and demand gap in the supply of human capitals. To achieve this, ADB will continue to work with our partners for capacity building and policy advice to our developing member countries. As we know, KERIS has been known as a leading government institute that have established Korea's advanced digital education infrastructure and also focus on the various international cooperations. KERIS is now participating in a ADB project supporting Teach for Philippines and also support for teacher capacity building for online education and parents engagement through digital technologies. We hope to expand the collaboration with KERIS for the education development with our DMCs through digital technology. With this, I thank you all for your participation in this briefing, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the KERIS Symposium sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your inspiring work, Mr. Shi. This marks the end of our presentation for today. Now we know how various international organizations are contributing to achieve SDG 4 in their own field. Tomorrow, KERIS has invited government officials from Bhutan, Uganda, and El Salvador to hear their stories. Please note that the galleries will be open for 24 hours till Friday. Why not pay a visit to different areas in this wonderful virtual world? Dear participants, how about playing an OS quiz together? We will start at 3 p.m. Please go to the event hall through the portal. Last survivors will win prizes. For those who want to participate, please check KERIS Instagram. We will start OX quiz after 5 minutes and the quiz will be played with Korean. 잠시 후 5분 뒤에 OX 퀴즈가 시작되겠습니다. 네, 지금부터 메타버스 OX 퀴즈 게임을 진행하겠습니다. 시작에 앞서 유의사항을 알려드리려고 하는데요. OX 정답 전환에 정확하게 들어가 주셔야 인식이 되고 경계선으로 가시거나 정답선 밖에 위치하면 인식이 되지 않아 탈락할 수 있으니 이 점 꼭 유의해 주시기 바랍니다. 그리고 탈락하신 분은 뒤편 의자에서 편하게 관람해 주시면 됩니다. 네, 그럼 지금부터 메타버스 OX 퀴즈 게임을 진행해 볼까요? 1번 문제 나갑니다. 2021 케리스 심포지엄 및 글로벌 네트워킹 위크는 11월 22일부터 11월 26일 금요일까지 총 5일간 진행된다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 카운트다운 들어갑니다. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 X입니다. X. 23일부터 26일까지 총 4일 동안 진행이 되고요. 23일 심포지엄일을 시작으로 둘째, 셋째, 넷째 날은 글로벌 네트워킹 위크가 이어집니다. 네, 다음 문제로 바로 넘어가 볼까요? 23일 기조강연 중 정지윤 대표의 주제는 언택트 교육의 미래이다? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 네, 정답은 X였습니다. 23일 정지윤 대표의 기조 강연은요, 교육 패러다임을 바꾸는 미래기술 트렌드라는 주제로 진행이 되고요. MIT 미디어랩 비교 미디어 연구학 교수인 저스틴의 발표가 바로 언택트 교육의 미래로 주제가 됐습니다. 다음 문제, 여러분 잘 따라하고 계시죠? 3번 문제 바로 가겠습니다. 국제기구 트랙의 참여기관은 유네스코 방콕, 세계은행, 아시아은행이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 바로 정답 발표하겠습니다. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 O였습니다. 현재 유네스코 방콕은 아태 지역의 미래교육을 향한 SDG4 달성을 위해 월드뱅크는 코로나19 시대 한국의 에듀테크 불평등과의 학습을 위해 그리고 아시아개발은행은 ADB의 디지털 교육을 위한 지원 교육기술 적용에 대한 생태적 접근을 위해 노력해주고 있습니다. 바로 4번 문제 나갑니다. 교류 협력국 트랙 참여 국가는 부탄, 우간다, 엘살바도르이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 정답은 O입니다. 내일이죠. 11월 25일에 케리스가 부탄, 우간다, 엘살바도르를 초청하고 있는데요. 내일도 저희와 함께 하셔서 그들의 생생한 이야기를 함께 들어보셨으면 좋겠습니다. 그러면 조금 더 난이도를 높여볼까요? 5번, 세션 2에서 전남대학교 이두휴 교수님의 발표 주제는 포용적 미래교육 거버넌스 구축 방안이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 5입니다. 어려운 문제였는데도 많은 분들이 캐리스에 대한 관심으로 정답을 맞춰주셨네요. 바로 6번 문제 나갑니다. 메타버스는 우주를 뜻하는 메타와 가상, 초월을 뜻하는 유니버스의 합성어이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 X입니다. 네, 아니죠. 메타버스는 우주를 뜻하는 유니버스와 초월, 가상을 뜻하는 메타의 합성어였습니다. 다음 문제 나갑니다. 괄호 안에 들어갈 알파벳은 N이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 들어가겠습니다. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 X였습니다. 네, 알파벳 F가 들어가야 되죠? 그러면 빠르게 마지막 문제로 넘어가 볼까요? 8번 문제 나갑니다. 다음 중 지구와 가장 가까이에 위치하고 있는 행성은 금성이다? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 O였습니다. 금성은 태양계 내에서 태양으로부터 두 번째 위치한 행성으로 지구와 가장 가까이 위치하고 있습니다. 부분 남으셨네요. 그러면 추가 문제 나갑니다. 뽀뽀뽀 노래 중에 뽀는 총 24번 나온다? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 네, 맞습니다. 정답. 뽀뽀뽀 노래 중 뽀는 총 24번 나옵니다. 잠시만 기다리고 계시면 최종 우승자 선발을 위한 추가 문제를 출제하도록 하겠습니다. 조금만 기다려 주시길 바랍니다. 네, 최후의 승자 두 분, 트위티님과 댄님, 혹시 지금 마이크가 가능한 상황인가요? 마이크가 가능하다면 손들기 기능을 이용해서 현재 말을 할 수 있다. 네, 트위티님 마이크 켜주시겠어요?
안녕하세요.
트위티님 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. 오늘 2021 케리스 심포지엄 글로벌 네트워킹 위크에 지금 현재 최후의 2인에 살아남으셨는데 간단하게 소감 한 말씀 들어볼 수 있을까요?
제가 퀴즈를 잘 맞추는 스타일이라 가지고 여기까지 올 줄 알았습니다.
자신감 너무 좋습니다. 그 자신감 이어가서 꼭 최후 우승까지 하시길 바라겠습니다. 대님 또 혹시 마이크 가능하실까요? 네, 그러면 마지막 OX 퀴즈 나가겠습니다. 내년 대통령 선거일은 3월 8일이다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 바로 카운트다운 들어갑니다. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 X였습니다. 이번에도 두 분 다 생존하셨는데요. 아주 대단합니다. 또 다음 문제 넘어가겠습니다. 달팽이도 이빨이 있을까요? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 3, 2, 1. 네, 정답은 O였습니다. 네. 이번에도 두 분 아주 쟁쟁하게 또 살아남으셨는데요. 바로 또 추가 문제 나가겠습니다. 제1회 아테네 올림픽은 1896년에 열렸다. 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 빠르게 카운트다운 들어가겠습니다. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 O였습니다. 이번에도 또 두 분 정답을 맞춰주셨는데요. 다음 문제 바로 또 나가겠습니다. 원숭이에게도 지문이 있을까요? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 네, 정답은 O였습니다. 두 분 아주 대단하십니다. 다음 또 바로 나가겠습니다. 남극에도 북극곰이 있을까요? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 카운트다운 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 정답은 X였습니다. 이번에도 두 분 다 제한 시간 내에 또 정답을 맞춰주셨는데요. 좀 어려운 문제 한번 내겠습니다. 개미도 높은 곳에서 떨어지면 죽을까요? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 바로 정답 공개하겠습니다. 정답은 X. 개미는 높은 곳에서 떨어지면 죽지 않습니다. 였습니다. 네, 바로 다음 문제. 벼룩은 날개가 있을까요? 맞으면 O, 틀리면 X. 네, 정답은 네, 카운트다운 3, 2, 1. 드디어 정답이 갈라졌습니다. 정답은 X입니다. 축하드립니다. 트위트님 다시 한번 마이크 켜주시겠어요? 간단한 자기소개와 함께
안녕하세요.
간단한 자기소개와 함께 최후 우승자가 된 소감을 한번 말씀해 주세요.
네, 안녕하세요. 지금 백수인데요. 저번에 메타버스에서 퀴즈 하는 거 참여했는데 재밌어가지고 오늘도 참여하게 되었습니다.
네,
1등
축하드립니다.
할 줄 몰랐는데
네네네.
감사드리고요. 감사합니다.
네, 최후의 우승자가 되신 거 축하드리고요. 앞으로도 2021 케리스 심포지엄 글로벌 네트워킹 위크에 지속적인 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 이상으로 메타버스 OX 퀴즈를 마치겠습니다. 열심히 또 즐겁게 게임에 임해주셔서 감사의 말씀을 전합니다. Thank you for your participation in this unfamiliar platform. 2021 KERIS Global Week will continue until tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. We ask for your continued interest toward this symposium and hope to meet you here today. Thank you and goodbye. If you leave the lobby, there are 3 galleries on your right, which will be operated throughout 3 days. Each gallery is prepared by partners of KERIS. Please enjoy freely. 로비로 나가시면 국제기구 전시 갤러리, 교류 협력국 전시 갤러리, 글로벌 수업 교류 갤러리까지 다양한 메타버스 전시와 갤러리가 준비되어 있으니까요. 편안하게 즐겨주셨으면 좋겠습니다.